AmandaLand, AmandaLand, AmandaLand. What's up, y'all? It is your favorite neighborhood merchant, Amanda Seals. I know I'm a woman of many hats, and today we are talking about my store, AmandaLand Exports. This is a one-woman show where I design the work. I fund getting it made. I ship it. And we're off to the post office. All right here. And thus, shipping times may take a little longer than usual. Sometimes you'll be like, where's my stuff? Where's my stuff? Why is it taking so long, Amanda? Listen, I'm not working with a warehouse of staff, just me. That's right, and I think that's beautiful. You're supporting a woman, a black woman, an independent black woman-owned business, all for the sake of artistic intellectualism. Because all of my pieces are meant to enrich you emotionally, mentally, educationally. So thank you for your support, thank you for your patience, and thank you for telling folks about AmandaLand Exports. It's a one-of-a-kind place for one-of-a-kind things. And sign up for the newsletter to make sure you don't miss the latest drop. I think I'm having separation anxiety from my book. Let me explain. So I was having like a depressive episode yesterday, and I was like, why am I having a depressive episode? Like, what is this actually attached to? And, you know, this is the beauty of therapy, is that in therapy, you don't just exist in the thing, you examine the thing. And so over time, I have existed in depressive episodes and examined them and like what is what and what is attached to this and whatnot. And so to help me to be able to also identify my feelings in accurate ways so that I can not just put everything under the same umbrella. It's like, well, this depressive episode is different than this because this is related to this and this is related to this. And how do these things feel different so that I'm able to identify what I need to do? And this one, I realized, felt like when I go into despair after like a breakup. Join Patreon and become a member of the SEAL Squad to get your daily morning musings and more. See you there. Good morning. What's up, y'all? Happy Wednesday. Is that what day it is? It's Wednesday. Yes. Good morning to everybody. Welcome to Views from AmandaLand, your news and truths by any joke necessary. I know people are coming in, getting acquainted, getting situated. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you for waking up on the right side of history. It is soups gloomy over here in New York. So it's really just like, bleh. But we don't have a gloomy day today at all in terms of the show. We have Davidson Boswell joining us for 60-second headlines, and we have the Sunrise Movement joining us as our ambassador of the week to talk about their work in climate change and political education around climate change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So looking forward to that. Shout out to everybody on the replay crew. Hold on, FedEx is calling me. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm back. This is working at home. Okay. So let's get into it. I also want to talk about the show Forever on Netflix. So we are going to be talking about that later on. The show Forever on Netflix. If you haven't watched it, this is not going to be a spoiler. I'm not going to spoiler it. I'm just going to discuss why I feel like it is such a phenomenal show. Okay? So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But first and foremost, come on. Everybody, let me know where you're watching from. AmandaLand is here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Yeah. Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. AmandaLand is here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Toronto, Canada. Pensacola, Florida. España. Chicago, Aurora, Colorado. St. Martin, Dutch Caribbean. We are very international this morning. New Braunfels, Tejas. Leander, Tejas. Davie, Florida. Wasau, Hawaii. Did I just see that? What is it? Wait. I don't even know where that is. AmandaLand is here to learn. Drop in and tell me where you're watching from. Oh, Wisconsin. That's what it was. Wisconsin. The Bahamas. South Africa. Mameli, what's up? We got Vacaville, Maryland, Atlanta, Albuquerque, North Kakalaki, a.k.a. North Carolina, Santiago, Saudi Arabia is back in the building. Shout out to Fahad. Camp Springs, Maryland, South Orange, New Jersey, Manchester. We also got Nasty City, California, Crestview Elementary School, Union City, California, Cleveland, Atlanta, Brooklyn, New York, Uptown, New York, south to the whole Harlem, D.C., we got Scotland, Salt Spring Island, we got Albuquerque, New Mexico, Michigan, Douglasville, Georgia, Sunnyvale, California, Delfort Wood, Tejas, the Netherlands. I don't know where Salt Spring Island is either, Rolando, but I'm about to Google. Patterson, New Jersey, per usual. Manila, Philippines. Now, hold on now. Danielle, are you watching in the Philippines or are you of the Philippines? The distinction is important. We got Fairfax, Virginia, Austin, Texas. FedEx is calling me back, but we got a show to do. Thank you for coming through. AmandaLand is here to learn. Thank you for telling me where you're watching from. I'm literally recording a show. Are we going to do this on Monday? Okay. Yes, I can. Okay, thank you. She called me 3 times. She just called me 3 times while we were recording this. 3 times. 3 times. To tell me that they can't deliver it on time. Like, it was supposed to come today. Now you can't deliver it till Tuesday. You called me 3. You couldn't leave a message? I couldn't call you back? 3 times. Sheesh. Let me just tell you something really quick while I'm still holding this mic. Let me tell you something about FedEx. So I had ordered something from overseas. And when I got it, there was like a bill that came with it about like the and it wasn't even tariffs, but it was just about like the oh, she's actually in the Philippines. We have to add a new pin today. Anyways, so I was like, yo, why did I get this bill? But then the bill said it was cleared, and so I never bothered about it. Okay, I never bothered about it. Then I started getting bills from FedEx. I never got an invoice. Let me correct this. I didn't get bills. I just got letters from FedEx saying, you owe us money. You owe us money. You owe us money. I never got an invoice. I just got notices of collections. Like, that's literally what was happening. It went from nothing to everything. And it was so odd because I didn't have an invoice that I thought that they were maybe like scamming me. And so I finally got to the bottom of it and I sent them a check, and literally it says on the check, "Leave me alone." Leave me alone. Like it was harassment. Harassment. All right, let's add a pin for the Philippines. Oh, we do have a pin in the Philippines already. All right. We already repping in the Philippines. Look at us over here. We already repping in the Philippines. I love it. All right. Look at that. Shout out to my Filipino people. Okay. All right. She called me 3 times, y'all. She called me 3 times. Shall we get into our word of the day? I can't wait till our word of the day is like from decks that I get made. But I'm afraid to get the decks made that I want to get made in this day and age, because I need to find a manufacturer that either is already like, you know, on the up and up, if you feel me, or they just don't care. That's what I have to figure out. Y'all slow getting into class today. It is 10:25. We only got 282 people here. Y'all slow. Slow getting into class today. We got to get it together. Okay. Our word of the day is boom. Factuous. 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 According to my 11th grade note card, factuous is stupid in a self-satisfied way. Stupid in a self-satisfied way. Factuous is a noun, right? I don't know why I've been having trouble with parts of speech lately. Usually I feel like, you know what this word is? This word is supposed to be facetious. What was I doing, y'all? I was not paying attention. Miss Poirot is going to be so mad at me that here I am at 43 and I'm going to my note cards from 11th grade, and I'm just writing the wrong words. The word is facetious. The word is facetious. So what was I really doing? Let's think about it. What was I really doing that I was writing this? I was probably thinking about a pointless boy. I was probably thinking about Kenny Lane. Ugh. Did any of y'all ever watch the Bachelorette with the black woman? Anyone? Did anyone ever watch the Bachelorette with the black woman? Let me know. Let me know if you've ever watched the Bachelorette with the black woman, because I'm about to give you some tea. So get into it. Okay. Do you remember the wrestler on that? His name was Kenny. That's probably who I was thinking about, because he was someone I went to school with since middle school. And I had a crush on him. And he actually used to call me Shitty Spice, because my friend Kristen Behringer, he liked her. And she was like, no, Amanda likes you, so I can't even entertain you. Solidarity. And because he was upset that she was my actual good friend and like didn't and held me down like this, he literally started calling me Shitty Spice, because he said I looked like a Spice Girl, but I wasn't one of the Spice Girls. So he would literally yell down the hall, "Shitty Spice!" The level of bullying that I have received. And then had the nerve to ask me to homecoming senior year. And because my father is not a present individual that gave me self-esteem, I went. But I had my growth spurt over summer, so I looked very cute. Okay? So I went. Yes. And I remember when he asked me, he was weird about it. And I literally said to him, he was like him and his friend Amin, who had sideburns that connected to the back of his hair, but that's another conversation for another time. And I remember there was a Maya song at the time, and I quoted the Maya song and was like, I'm not here for that. And I walked away, because I lived in a 90s rom-com. I felt like I was in She's All That. Yeah. Anyways, Kenny Lane and I tried to, I guess, date after homecoming, and it all ended when he dropped me off at home after going to see Shakespeare's Hamlet at my school, and he didn't even walk me to the door. And I was greeted with a palmetto bug at the door because I lived in Florida. And I'm so deathly afraid of them, and my mom wasn't home, that I went and sat in the driveway and waited for my mom to get home before I went in my house. Moving on. That's what it was, Ross. It was moving on. Right. He asked me to homecoming, and I was like Maya says, if you can't figure out the proper way to ask me, I'm moving on. I'm giving you all this joy right now because we don't got nothing joyful to talk about. Not with David, not with the Sunrise Movement. We don't got nothing joyful. So I'm trying to give y'all some joyful to balance it out. Okay? Yeah, then he ended up like getting on that show, and even after we had like stopped talking because he's corny, he literally like tried to like pull me out the hat on Instagram and act like we was cool to like try and get clout. No, sir. Cut it out. Cut it out. Shall we get into our 60-second headlines? I think we shall. Let's do it. AmandaLand. 60-second headline. Gonna run down some news right quick.
Run it down, mama. Put us on.
When I say that the genocide in Gaza is reaching its final stage, I don't mean that the cause is over or the cause should be abandoned. I'm saying that the plan all along has been to move internally displaced people throughout Gaza, move them into camps, then bomb the camps, then starve the population, and now a starved and weakened population is going to be moved in on by the Israeli military, and they're going to kill or attempt to kill all the resistance that is left in Gaza. And that is a genocide. And this is the darkest chapter of that genocide. And constantly, the argument that is made to like kind of say that this isn't a genocide is saying, well, we're not killing all the groups of people, right? Every member of a group. And if that is the definition used, then there has never been a genocide in the world. And of course, that is not true. But yeah, that would mean that there were no more Rwandans left, there were no more Armenians left, and there were no more Jewish people left. And all of those groups have been subjected to genocide, and Palestinians are the latest in this chapter, right? So yeah, when I say that the genocide is entering its end stage, I'm not saying that all Palestinians will be killed. I'm saying this is a plan to enact a final solution.
Davidson. We came in.
Wow, what an intro.
Wait, real quick, guys. I completely forgot to do the word of the day because I got so wrapped up in the story of Kenny. So we'll come back to that later in the show. Welcome, Davidson. Davidson, you have one of the waspiest white names I've ever heard in my entire life.
I know. I think it might take the cake, honestly. Davidson Boswell.
It doesn't even feel real. It feels like a character in Trading Space.
It's literally like if you look up like white person in the dictionary. Like example, Davidson Boswell.
Davidson Boswell. Like I feel like you're in the Music Man. It is so happy to have you here. Like many of the people here in the chat, I was introduced to your thoughts on the Instagrams, and you never miss.
Thank you. Yeah. It's interesting because we exist in a world where the media won't accurately report on what we can look at with our eyes. So I guess I would say you occupy the same space, which is like, all right, well, I'm just going to say what I see. And that's just not happening at places like the New York Times, Washington Post, anywhere. So especially as it relates to what you just played, the genocide in Gaza.
Well, I was really, we're watching right now college graduations going down, and the students are doing their thing. I know right now they're outside of Columbia protesting. I would love to renounce. I don't know if there's like an official like renouncement ceremony that can be done for degrees, but I may need to do that for my Columbia degree because I really look at Columbia like, what was that about? I feel like if I didn't go to the Institute for Research in African American Studies, like I would have already renounced it, but I feel like I was in like a little hovel.
Right. Yeah. No, all the stuff that they write about like truth and justice on their buildings and stuff like that should be sandblasted off at this point.
Yes.
It's so hypocritical.
Now, I always see you around New York for your videos. Like, I'm always like, oh, what train station is he in? Look, that's 110th Cathedral Parkway. What's he doing over there?
Yeah.
So, and then I just saw that you're doing stand-up. So tell me a little bit more about the world of Davidson Boswell, because I saw that you had a comedy show listed, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, well, I'm a comedian and also I guess at this point an activist as well, because you kind of are forced into these things once you start talking about third rail issues in American politics, like Israel, criticizing Israel. So I'm trying to pair these very disparate worlds because and I talk about this a lot. But so I started out doing comedy, and then around October 7th of 2023, I started really talking about like, hey, there's about to be a genocide in Gaza. Like
Same.
this is going to happen.
Yes.
They're saying it's not happening, like, but they're going to bomb hospitals, schools until there's no one left. And you get labeled as an anti-Semite when you do that. And I'm not trying to say anything too crazy, but there is an enormous amount of Zionism here in New York City, and particularly in the comedy community. A lot of the comedy clubs in New York are a lot of the comedy clubs are literally run and operated by former IDF soldiers, right? So
That
it's
I
interesting.
did not know.
Yeah, so the Comedy Cellar is a good example, you know. So it's very crazy that in a world like the comedy that talks about speaking truth to power, the ultimate power, you know, cannot be criticized, which is bombing, you know. So
Yeah.
it really made me realize that I had to change my path because it's interesting when you're going along and you're like, oh, this is the goal, but the goal is filled with people that I would never ever want to be around. So you have to make a third way. So I'm trying to fuse these two things of like activism and comedy. So you really have to be very intentional about who you work with when you start to realize that people are okay with all these atrocities that are happening around the world,
Yes.
as long as it doesn't affect their ability to like feature in Des Moines, Iowa. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, what is more important to you? You know what I mean? Like $80 or an entire population getting wiped off the face of the earth, you know? Not to be too like,
No, no, no.
well,
You're in the
yeah,
right
yeah.
place. You're in the right place.
Okay,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
that is my, you know, I went through a similar experience as a comic. I mean, I left stand up altogether because I just don't have any interest in it right now for my messaging, but that doesn't disregard the necessity to be in that space with this messaging. And last year I had a tour that ended up having to cancel because the Zionists had effectively gotten my shows canceled and hacked my ticket site. I was doing a show in Detroit,
Whoa.
and they had a truck parked outside with my face on the side that said Amanda Seales is a Jew hater.
What? Oh
Yes.
my God.
And they
Yeah.
had it driving around Detroit. They had done an email campaign. And then I had shows in, I was ending my tour in my biggest markets, and my ticket site kept crashing and kept crashing and it kept crashing. And folks was like, that's what they do. Like, that's what's happening. And so I ended up having to cancel my whole tour. They also got my show canceled in Philly at the Kimmel Center. Kimmel, right? So this is a Jewish last name, but it turns out they end up also being Zionists. And so they were willing to cancel my show. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to do my one-woman show. What would the ancestors say? I'm going to bring that forward. But to your point, finding venues that were not run by Zionists. Like, so we were like, okay, let's go to City Winery. They've always wanted to work with you. So I said, wait, Google City Winery,
Right.
find out who the owner is. And sure enough, he's a very loud and proud Zionist. And it becomes like, we thought it was hard to find venues that aren't Ticketmaster run. No.
Yeah. It goes much deeper than that. Yeah. Well, that's
So I commend
that's really
you.
interesting. That's and that's also tantamount to a threat. It's similar to what Bill Ackman did when he wanted to
Yes.
get those Harvard
He threatened me.
graduates blackballed. Yeah. So when you put your name on a truck and drive it around, the implicit threat is if you see this person, intimidate them or even get up into their face and hurt them, you know?
Yes.
And that, if you want to know anything about a power dynamic, see who you're allowed to criticize, you know? And so like, you're not allowed to criticize Zionists, but you can come after you, who I don't know. Yeah. Like, so that doesn't make any sense to me. Right. So, yeah. And it just makes you, and anti-Semitism is such a cudgel, you know, it's like a black mark. It's like the new McCarthyism, you know, they're like calling you a communist essentially.
Absolutely.
So it just doesn't make any sense. Down is up is down, down is up.
Where did you go to school?
A really small school in South Carolina called Wofford. They love
Because
the name
your
Davidson Boswell down there.
vocabulary, your
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
vocabulary. We've heard
Oh,
tantamount
yeah.
thus far. We've heard cudgel. We're big on vocab at this show. You came in while we were doing a vocab word, so yes.
Right.
I'm
Yeah. No, I
just
loved that. I love that. And there's so many. What was the word? Factuous. There are so many factuous people in the Zionism debate. They're like, actually, you know what I mean? Like,
it's like no,
yeah, yeah,
no.
yeah. But I'm really, yeah. But I was a history major, which got me in to be a history major is to know the history of the Middle East because, or at least the last 30 years, because that has been our theater of war. You know, so you can't
Mhm.
really extricate those two things from each other. You can't like have a United States history without a history of Iraq, without a history of Syria, without a history of Yemen, and of course, without a history of Palestine.
You know what I noticed too is that there's this trick that I feel like the United States has effectively deployed, which is that basically anything that happened after 1945 is like not history. Like
Mm-hmm.
history begins 45 and back, and then there's like the civil rights movement, but anything after that is seen kind of just like things that happened. And I'm like,
Right.
no, time continues to go on. Things are happening that are causing things to happen. This is history. We have to continue to study.
Yeah, there was a great tweet that I saw about like Donald Trump introducing tariffs again, and they're like they've been done in 1838, 1932, and now, and the common theme is everyone had to be dead in order for them to introduce it again, right? You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
they knew it was a bad idea. So yeah, I think there are people alive and that remember these periods of great strife. You know, like. Civil rights like protests and stuff like that, and they're like, no, the neat bow that you put on it is the Civil Rights Act passed and now we all live in harmony. And obviously that's not true. That
Martin
plantation
Luther
house
King
was
literally
burned
talks
down.
about that in his book. He literally
Really?
talks
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
in his last book, where do we go from here, community or chaos, which I think you'd really appreciate. He talks
Yeah.
about like, we got the Voting Rights Act passed, we got the Civil Rights Act passed, and then people kept getting lynched and
Yep.
the Klan got stronger. So this was not, he was like, by the time Martin Luther King stood on that balcony, I think he was like, y'all just take me out. Because
Right.
I
Yeah.
really believe that Martin knew if he got on that balcony that it was going to go down. And I think that's why he's smiling, because he's like, I've done everything I can.
Wow.
I really
Yeah, when
believe
Malcolm
that.
X got assassinated, he like raised his arms like this. You know what I mean? He was almost
He
like
knew.
embracing the yeah. And then
And
James Baldwin, who I see behind you, was like when Ronald Reagan got elected, he was like, I'm going to France. You know what I mean? Like I give up. Like it's
he
deuces.
was
Yeah.
like, I'm out. Actually, fun fact, well, not fun fact at all, but serious fact, comedian Dick Gregory had actually talked to Malcolm X the night before he went to the Audubon, and Malcolm was like, I'd really love for you to come, like to support, because remember, he had just come back from Mecca. He was no longer aligned with the Nation of Islam, and so he was trying to start his own faction of coalition building, and Dick was like, if you go in there, it's not going to end well. And he was like,
Wow,
well,
I
I
didn't
have
know
no
that.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no choice. And so he went. So shout out to Dick Gregory, who cursed me out and I cursed him out. And
So you're part of history. That's kind of crazy.
yes, he was
That's
telling a
good.
story about the Constitution. And I asked the signing of the Constitution. I asked the question, and he was like, "Shut up! Shut the
Whoa.
F up! I'm talking." And I was like, "I know who the heck you talking to, old man. You ain't talking to the right one." And I left. So
Oh man.
there we have that. So let's talk about. Okay, I'm just going to play a little bit of this because I don't like to give them airtime, but I just think it's worth noting that when you see folks like us talking about the behavior of Zionists, it's not something that we are inferring. It is something we are literally referencing. This is language.
אמר לך יותר מזה, כל ילד, כל תינוק בעזה הוא אויב.
Okay.
כל תינוק בעזה הוא אויב.
He's literally saying every child in Palestine is an enemy. He's literally saying every child in Gaza is the enemy. We need to conquer the enemy and colonize it. And this is a former MP of the Israeli Knesset. And he is saying without question that Hamas is not the issue. All of Palestine is the issue. He says verbatim, every child, every baby in Gaza is the enemy. The enemy is not Hamas. And it's not Hamas's military wing, like our chief military prosecutor tells us, that we're not allowed to harm a Hamas member unless they're part of the military wing. When you see this, and then you still see folks in the United States who are in government, who are in legislation, who are supporting this, how do you, I don't even know what the question is. How do you smile?
Yeah. The only thing that I know is happening is there is a generational split in America, right? So everyone under the age of, I guess when people don't have like the Holocaust as their primary historical reference point, as like the last true atrocity that happened in the world, right? Which does not, I mean, obviously an awful thing, but does not inform our every waking movement.
It's true.
Anyone below the age of like 60, which unfortunately, those are not the people that have any power here in the United States. We live in a geriocracy, or whatever that word is, where there's like, we're run by gerontocracy. Yeah. So
how old are you, Davidson?
I'm 33. Yeah.
Okay.
So I heard you say you're 43. So we're the same, like we're both millennials. So it's like it's a very different world we inherited. So it just comes off as like increasingly hollow propaganda, because you're using propaganda against primary source material, right? You're like, okay, well, that argument makes no sense because I just listened to one of the most powerful people in Israeli society openly call for genocide. And what is frustrating and what's hard to make it sound like you're not being racist sometimes is that Israeli society supports these actions. You know what I mean? So this is a nation that polls very highly to commit ethnic cleansing in that state. They've been raised on this kind of like superiority complex. Yeah. And if you learn about the rape of Nanking or anything like that, Japanese boys and girls were taught in school about the inferiority of Chinese people, right? This is incredibly dangerous to do to a group of people. It's what's happening here in America with trying to change education curriculums in places like Oklahoma and Florida. And it has real consequences when you brainwash people, right? So it's very important that, and this is why I smile, because I do consider myself part of a movement, a youth movement, to make sure that young people, because old people have turned their brains off to this, right? They're not fully. I'm sure you have boomers in your audience and stuff like that. I'm not speaking, but it is very much breaks down along generational
They know
lines,
they're the
right?
unique ones. They know they're the outliers.
Yeah. So I'm just like, all right, so we are now engaged in a war between ideas, right? And whoever wins that idea war it's going to have great consequences, because they're at the what's the quote? If you can make someone believe absurdities, you can make them commit atrocities. And unfortunately, Israel has been so propagandized that there's a view. They have this like viewpoint set up so they can bring their kids and they can look out at Gaza being bombed. Have you seen that? Right?
Yes,
like where,
wildly
so it's like,
dystopian.
So you really have to think that they aren't people in order for yourself to be able to do that. So we really have to continue to fight the fight. And obviously you said I joined when you said you were having a depressive episode yesterday. How are we all not just walking around having depressive episodes all the time, right? Like, so when you see that, so we're engaged in a struggle.
We are engaged in a struggle. And, I think also just for a lot of us, this is a new level of awareness that is now active, right? Like there was awareness before, but now like there's activation that has to happen, and that has been happening with people protesting, people being a part of BDS, et cetera, et cetera. And I think for a lot of us, it was more so just something that was happening kind of like in our zeitgeist, and now it's a part of our existence. And if you as a comic, you as a comic saying like, I've had to literally adjust the pursuance of my goals and dreams based on this knowledge and this commitment to my integrity, says everything about, just how impactful it is in this time frame to the United States than it was prior, right? So
totally.
I also just commend you on that, because what you're doing is you're forging a path that is eventually going to be followed by a lot of other people because it didn't exist before. And so that's a doozy. So
well, so are you. So I think
well, it sucks for us.
What we're doing right now did not exist 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, this is brand new. Credibility is completely shot.
Yes.
Joe Biden was run as a corpse.
We are going to get into this. Yes.
Yeah, and so like, once you realize that everyone was completely happy with just to lie to us and bring us back into the arms of Trump, well, then you're like, okay, this is not worth preserving. We need to forge a new way forward, because why do I want to follow in the footsteps of any of that bullshit?
Which brings us to our next conversation. So, y'all, Biden's top aide was making bank. All right. So, in my latest edition of The Democrats Are Full of It and Do Not Have Your Best Interests at Heart, the new book, Original Sin, the President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again, written by CNN's Jake Tapper and Axios's Alex Thompson, is now, it's coming out, okay? Now, here's my frustration. You all are journalists. You're just, and I love Axios, but I'm like, so we're just talking about this now? Oh, because it was good for a book. It not only reveals that both of them, to me, are sideways, but it also demonstrates how deep self-serving corruption exists within this government, because you guys, the person who got the $4 million got it because he was the head of Biden's reelection campaign. So then you're like, oh, well, then he had to run again. And this guy is, to this day, saying, no, he was fine. He was fine. Thoughts, Davidson?
Well, I mean, it really shows you how there are no consequences for these actions, right? Because that's so egregious, that's so institutionally corrupt. But Washington is just this closed loop, you know, and they stay within that ecosystem. So you know, you want to like get yours, because you're not going to be have access to power again for another 4 years because Trump's coming back. So yeah, like, if you were truly a public servant, you'd be like, all right, well, pay me $10,000 and I'll tell you that you shouldn't run again, and that'll be my consulting fee. You know what I mean?
Right.
And let me go work for a candidate that can actually beat this guy. You know what I mean? But that's not the game at all. The game is to get reelected, or if you have proximity to power, to just stay in the limelight long enough to get your bank to a level where you can afford a 2-bedroom in Alexandria somewhere, right? It's just so fucking corrupt. And once again, this folds back into the same theme as Israel, because they're telling us to not believe our eyes, right? That is the consistent theme with the media, is like, no, that's not a genocide, and this guy is spry and intellectually with it, and he's definitely not dementia ridden. So it's so frustrating, because yeah, it seems like they pretty much had the first draft of this book done by the time Trump won. You know what I mean? Like, this thing was cranked out fast. Like,
well, let me tell you, they've been writing
this.
Like, you know, books take time. I just went through a situation where I'm now deciding to buy my book back from Simon & Schuster, because they have a timeline that you have to adhere to for their production. And if you are not willing to adhere to that timeline, they're like, well, then we're just going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. But like, in terms of production, they have a specific way that they do this. And I feel like this is a great question. Do we think they announced the cancer to squash the book discussion? What do you think?
I think yes, because I think I'm trying not to be too much of a conspiracy theorist, but he did say. At this point,
is it conspiracy theory? I feel like it's just being thoughtful about these people and their terror.
Right. Like, there's very few laws of science, so this is still a theory. But he said in a gaffe, like in 2022, he's like, cancer. You know what I mean? And it's like, wait, where'd that come from?
He literally said, you know, people who have cancer like me.
Yeah. It's like, wait. What? Yeah. And then you just start, you know, you don't want to start looking at the eye on top of the pyramid of the $1 bill or something like that. Like, get really into like the weeds. But it is like, wait, he has deep cancer in his bones?
Yeah.
Like, doesn't that take a while to metastasize?
Yes,
And I
it
think the
does.
answer is yes. And I think, yes, once again, you remember when the FBI was like running that investigation of how he had like documents in his garage? And
Yeah.
one of the investigators was like, he's a well-meaning old man that forgets. This is the same kind of thing where it's like, well, you wouldn't attack me, a cancer victim. And it's like, actually, you're wrong about that. I will attack you because you're incredibly selfish and put your needs above the other 330 million people here in the United States. So yeah, I think it's totally that. I think he's totally trying to deflect.
I have an article I'm going to post on Substack tomorrow, an essay about, well, I think essay is a strong word, but some thoughts about folks who are simultaneously celebrating Malcolm X's birthday while sending well wishes to Joe Biden. And I'm like, you can't do the two at the same time. It's not, it's against the laws of physics.
Yeah. The guy who authored the 94 crime bill was no fan of Malcolm X, you know? Yeah.
That's it. All right, so let's talk about Trump's big, beautiful bill, which I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but it's actually pretty ugly. So a whitewash house spokesperson, because that's now what I'm calling them now, a whitewash house spokesperson has said that the bill, which is filed with immense tax cuts for billionaires and corporations, along with zero to no regulation for AI, will quote unquote stimulate the economy, earning $2.6 trillion over the next 10 years. By the way, they just be making up words. I think it's only a matter of time for them to say, we're going to have $1 bajillion.
Right.
Bajillion. Right. Now, after their math with the tariffs, there is no reason for us to trust their math. And the nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget agrees disagrees, countering what the whitewash house spokesman says. They're saying that in actuality, it will increase the debt by $3.3 trillion through 2034, which is less than 10 years, and increase annual deficits by $2.9 trillion to $3.3 trillion. Now, I know for a lot of us, it's like, okay, numbers. Mm-hmm. But the United States exists on debt. It exists on credit. And Moody's Ratings, which is a 115-year-old top investor service that provides data, intelligence, and analytical tools, and is considered the global credit, bonds, and securities rating agency of choice, they just lowered the United States credit rating. So we used to have a AAA credit rating, and they have lowered it. So it was a triple uppercase A. And now we're just 1 uppercase and 2 lowercase A's. This is similar to when you go to your favorite food spot and they got a B outside on the window. And if you're in New York, you know that's a chance. That's a chance you're taking. But by the way, since they have completely just gutted the FDA, which barely did anything in the first place, I mean, anything you're eating at this point is a B or C rating. So this bill is not getting through, apparently because a lot of Republicans are not supporting it. Do you know anything about this bill?
Yeah, so Josh Hawley.
I know he does. Go ahead.
Well, Josh Hawley actually is occupying a really crazy space. He's the guy from Missouri, white nationalist from Missouri. We can call it like we see it. But he's like, listen, this is awful politics. Like, even he understands that to give billionaires tax cuts while at the same time of making aggressive cuts to Medicaid is class warfare, right? And at a certain point, it's like, all right, we're going to give tax rebates for jets and yachts. And then your kid, if he gets measles, which is incredibly likely, is not going to be able to go to a hospital for it without getting a $4,000 bill at the end of it. So once people are dying, once people don't have their second and third meals taken care of for the day, they're eating less, they're having less access to medicine, and they see people preening at the Met Gala, you know what I mean? Like, it just really stokes this internal division. And so I even think Republicans at this point are like, listen, we're giving up the game. This is too intense. And so, I mean, not to, delve too far into like Marxism, but the capital
we always love to delve into Marxism here.
Capital is concentrating too far. And if you saw the initial tax code, and I think this was underreported on, that for the first time ever in 2018, labor was taxed at a higher rate than capital was, right? So money sitting in a index fund or a stock market that just accrues value is taxed less than you going out there and working for a living. You know what
Yes.
I mean?
Yes.
So if they also pair that with further tax cuts and Medicaid slashing, I mean, the Molotov cocktails are going to come out, you know? So they're like, all right, and I could be wrong, but I
No, is
just don't
there,
think they can
okay,
push too far. Yeah.
let's take it even, does this feel like conspiracy theory to consider that maybe they want to create this
Right.
class war for the goal of being able to enact a martial law that allows for incarceration of people at a rate where there is now a really significant free labor force?
Yeah, that is an interesting, because I always wonder about. So yes, I think that's very possible. It seems like markets like stability based on capital flight from the United States going into markets like Europe with somewhat more stable democracies and stuff like that. So I wonder if Trump, because that seems to be the only thing that reins in Trump's worst impulses, is the Dow crashing, the bonds markets like going crazy. So I wonder if like JP, who's the guy, Jamie Dimon, or Ken
Chase.
Griffin would be like, don't do this. You know what I mean? Like, we are okay with oh shit, sorry. With
There's a ghost.
yeah, I'm about to, I get a red dot on my forehead all of a sudden. Yeah, no, but I'm just saying, like, I think there's like rich people who have cleaved off all their morality but are still smart, and then there are dumb people that have a lot of power right now, and there's kind of this push and pull happening where they're
That's
like, okay, we gotta not make it this obvious that we hate poor people. And so Trump is just doing it too quickly.
There's also real fearfulness around the fact that poor people, someone literally just said, what in the Born Identity? And I literally had just said in my head, you do give us a bit, you are giving me a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's something very real about the fact that they know, which Trump doesn't seem to grasp, but once you push people far enough, they will just come and take it from you.
Right.
There's a whole legion of Luigis that are very close to the surface if you push them far enough, right?
Right.
And I don't think I think the smart ones that have cleaved off their morality, though, they do have a sense of like, yeah, but this could become unlivable if we make it unlivable for enough people.
They still want to be able to go into public, right? Like, these guys are going to have to get into their castles and bunkers. They already kind of like, they go to Gstaad and all these like places like Aspen and hang out with each other. But you still have to somewhat exist in the world. And if you're being this antagonistic and this greedy, you're gonna have a hard time walking into the Hilton Hotel in Midtown. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be tough for you. Yeah.
For those who don't know, the place where that happened cannot be more populated. Like in New York, like it is times. It was the one in Times Square, right? It was on 51st.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
The center of the center of New York.
Yes, like I know exactly where they were standing. So I just want to tell you, Davidson, that we appreciate you. And I wasn't sure until we did this interview whether I was going to bestow this upon you, but Davidson, you are a high quality white.
Yes. All right. Yeah. I can't even tell my parents; they won't understand. Thank you so much.
Good for you. You're a high quality white, Davidson. Actually, that leads me to ask you: how did you become this high quality of a white?
I went to Haiti when I was 17 and saw.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait. Yeah. How? Why?
Well, it was through a church mission trip, which a lot of good that did, but it was still like, but I saw the legacy of imperialism, the legacy of, I guess, white supremacy, the first successful slave revolt was in Haiti, and then the rest of the world never stopped fucking them over after that. And you see the legacy 150 years later. So I went there after the earthquake happened and stayed there for 2 weeks, and that had a profound effect on the way I viewed the world. And then I went to college, started taking all of these classes on the most impactful class I took was the Life and Times of Malcolm X. I saw like how exactly, right up here too. I saw how much all these institutions that we were supposed to like venerate actually spent most of their time following around people that we now consider heroes. I'm like, all right. And then also walking around with the name Davidson Boswell and my face already gives people this preconceived notion about me. And I got tired of it. Basically, I was like, all right, no, I'm not. So I'm gonna go really hard in the opposite direction. But yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We appreciate you.
I am gonna be following you closely because I love everything you're doing here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Davidson. We appreciate you. And folks can follow you at your name, at Davidson Boswell on the Instagrams. And when can we see you on stage?
So I have a great show coming up at Grove 34 June 20th. I hope you guys will buy tickets. That's at my Instagram and on my Instagram. And then I'm all around. If you follow me on social media, I perform all over the city all the time. I got a show at Union Square at this consignment shop, which is going to be fun. So yeah.
People don't understand when you're a comic, like you might be. I will never forget in LA, like the biggest show that people were telling me I need to get on was in like the attic, like backroom space of a Chinese restaurant in where was it? In some Los Feliz. They're like, that's where you gotta go. I'm like, all right. And I went.
Yeah, when people ask you where you perform, you say everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere. Yes. I have performed in pizza shops. I performed in bars. I performed in the crawl space of a Chinese restaurant in Los Feliz. So, Davidson, you have an excellent, fabulous rest of your week. And thank you so much. And if you're not writing, do you write?
Yeah, please follow my Substack.
Okay.
At Davidson Boswell. Yeah, I write all the time. So, and I look forward to, I'll follow you after this.
I was like, you literally said spry. Okay, y'all. That's the mark of a true vocabularian. When you got the vocab word with the few syllable, with the one syllable vocab word, that gives it away.
Oh, man.
You have a good one, Davidson. Thank you. Spry. I was like, whoop. All right. Well, we're going to get right into our ambassador of the week, y'all. So let's do it. AmandaLand. It's the AmandaLand ambassador of the week. Hey! Get it on, y'all. Get it on. Get it on, y'all. Get it on. Yes. Hello. All right, Dejah, can we get you a little more
center?
Yes, perfect. And Aru, how are you?
Hi, so great to be on.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. I was a big fan of Small Doses. It got me through college. So great to meet you.
Small Doses.
EMT, we're serving us.
Well, welcome to the show. This is Aru and Dejah of the Sunrise Collective and the Sunrise Movement. And I really feel like I came across you guys because of course on this internet this algorithm is full of it, but ever so often it does bring me into spaces with people of like minds, and you guys are that. And I think that there just really isn't enough conversation around how climate change factors into our resistance in a very literal way. Like, it's not esoteric. It's not something that you have to like expand to include. It's already there. You just have to know how to point it out. So I want to talk first about what the Sunrise Movement is and what you guys do. You guys, normally I tell them that they have to address their questions by people's last names, but since it's two of you, you can say, Aru and Dejah, or Miss
Well-
Aru and Dejah, because we are in a class. All right, so y'all send your questions through in the chat. But again, so let's get to talking. What is the Sunrise Movement?
Yes, I can kick us off a little bit. Aru, feel free to jump in. But Sunrise is a youth-led climate movement that's organizing, building power to stop the climate crisis, create millions of good jobs. We have over 100 hubs across the country of young people who are doing direct action, organizing, campaigning around climate. We do this in some of our trainings, but I like to say this is like not your local eco club. We're like not about recycling and composting, though that work is very important. We are like a youth organization that's trying to build people power and political power to like meet the scale and urgency of the climate crisis with the type of like action it demands.
And where did this begin and how? And by whom?
It started around 7 years, or yeah, is it 7 now? Oh,
Like
8
time.
years.
Time.
It's flying.
I joined Sunrise when I was right out of my freshman year of college, and that was like right around when it started. It was like 2017. And it was just a bunch of kids from around the climate movement who were like, actually, nobody is taking seriously this issue, and we need to do something about it, and we need to make politicians do something about it. And it's as simple as that. And I often say to young organizers, like, small groups of people with the courage to dream a little bigger than what's possible is what changes the world. And I think Sunrise is really an example of that. Like a bunch of people sat in a room and said, this isn't working. Let's do something else. Let's do something that's actually going to transform our political system in the ways that we need.
What wasn't working?
I think the truth is that before Sunrise, like climate was dead in the water as a political issue. People were like, well, we can't do anything about climate because it would like kill jobs. It was like so low on the Democratic list of priorities. And I remember, I helped knock a lot of doors in 2018 and the Democrats won the House. And then there was this like article that came out that was like, Dems damp down hope on climate. And I think we at Sunrise just like didn't take that lying down. Like right after that, we did a sit-in in Nancy Pelosi's office calling on the Democratic Party to like create a select committee around the Green New Deal and actually like try to tackle the greatest crisis of our time. And that, I think that's what wasn't working. And that's what we decided to change is we were like, politicians have to take the climate crisis seriously. And this is a defining issue of our generation.
Yeah. And I think it was the boldness and audacity of Sunrise to me that pulled me in. I'm from Chicago. I joined 6 years ago and went to a training, and I'm hearing these kids talk about the fossil fuel industry and about the Democratic Party and how we need to be like sitting in our senator's office and like asking them to support the Green New Deal. And there was something about pushing for bold action, even if at times it felt impossible. And we'll talk about some of our plans of what we're cooking up over the next 4 years, but it was just like to be bold and to like meet the moment with the types of like action organizing that's needed is what I find to be so like inspiring about our movement.
Can you just, for clarity purposes, let folks know what is the Green New Deal?
You go, Patty.
Yeah, so the Green New Deal was introduced, I believe, there's like a whole history out like Green Party and things like that, but the Green New Deal is sort of a comprehensive vision to address the climate crisis. It was introduced by Ed Markey and AOC in Congress, but it's a bill that's essentially about decarbonizing, but not just like reducing our carbon emissions. It's about like investing in Black, brown, poor, working class communities. So like a just transition. It's about green union jobs. Like it will take a lot of work to transition every sector of our economy onto one that runs on clean energy. And so how do we like ramp up jobs for young people and all people in this country? Those are some of the like core tenets of the Green New Deal. So like a policy vision that meets the climate crisis at the like scale.
Outside of, addressing politicians, one of the things on your website speaks to your strategy and education of the people really being the cornerstone of the strategy. So can you talk to me more about that? Because I'm just a strong proponent at this point of the fact that education is really the solve across the board for literally everything.
Yeah, I mean, we're a movement driven by people power. I would say like our fundamental belief about the way that society works is that society works because everyday people choose to make it work. Like we're the ones who do the actual, like run the trains, like drive cars, deliver things, pack boxes. Like that is all, go to school. Like that is all just things that everyday people do. And part of the reason I think there's a sense that change will only happen if you convince the people in charge. And the reality is that actually, if you convince everyone not in charge, if you convince the masses of people, you're actually able to create enormous change. So that's where I think the education piece comes in. And training and leadership development is a really huge part of our strategy of actually equipping people with the organizing skills and also the orientation, the strategic understandings that they need to be able to run campaigns wherever they are.
And so how do you go about doing that? I mean, this is a different time. I feel like there may be more access to people, but also like more impediments at the same time. It's like an odd,
yeah, I think
juxtaposition.
some of the vehicles that we do this around education are like social media. There's a lot of political education that happens through our like graphics, through the videos, through our storytelling. We also run trainings. So we just had a training in Colorado where like 90 plus members and leaders from across our movement came together to learn how to put on mass trainings in their communities.
Oh,
so that,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
it
that
was
folks,
a training about training.
It was a training of trainers. Yes.
Okay.
And we think that's how we like scale our movement and reach as many people as possible. And we're also kicking off a series of regional trainings across the summer where we're like, how do we get our vision and our strategy of like dismantling and like ending the oligarchy and actually putting a government in place that will stop the climate crisis, but many other issues. And we think trainings are a way, not just where we like consciousness raise and educate people, but we also move them to action. And so often there are calls to actions that are like, we're planning an action through our campaigns, plug in. So yeah, I think a lot of it is a mix of like, how do we educate people? But so much about organizing and movement building is like, what are we calling people to do in action together?
I mean, honestly, I feel like that is also education. Folks don't know what to do. Folks don't know what to activate, how to activate. We have effectively, as an American, as a USian culture, been trained to be docile, right? And been trained to be like, please, sir, more rights, sir. Rights, not rice. There's a very real brainwashing that has effectively convince people that their only way, and Aru, you just said this, that their only method of getting any level of change is to ask for it versus to make demands, and also to just demonstrate that this is a thing that's happening, which is also why I love that you all are called Sunrise Movement, not Sunrise Collective, right? Because like, a collective is just like, we all here, like we might do some stuff, but ultimately we gonna hang out. That's what we gonna do.
Yeah. And I think our biggest opportunity in this moment, like there's so much despair and so many people that are like doom scrolling on social media, maybe do not believe in the power of organizing. We saw like the 2020 uprisings, mass protests. And if you look at the like material lives of many Black people in this country, very little has changed. And so I think there's this opportunity for us to figure out how do we communicate to people that like organizing and movement building can work. And we need to do it at a scale that our country has never seen before. And especially as we think about what it's going to take to resist Trump, we see him 2028 hats. I'm like, you legally cannot run for president in 2028. And I think we need to be thinking about how we build the type of power that will say, no, you must go, as we continue to resist his current attempts to capture, as he is doing, and taking over our government now.
And I think a lot of our analysis around that is in order to effectively do that, like people voted for Trump because this system is not working for most people, as you were saying, Dejah. And part of what we actually need to do is articulate a vision of a society that works for everyday people, of a government that works for everyday people, and call Trump out for like the oligarchic president that he is. Like he's an authoritarian, and he's not for working class people. He's not for everyday people. And I think like making that really clear in the ways we campaign, and particularly campaign around climate, which I think is actually an issue that touches so many people's lives and is his most unpopular issue, is a really important opportunity. Like he is going to mess up on this, and it is really important. There's a vocal youth climate movement that's able to say like, if you want a livable future, we have to kick this guy out. We have to end the reign of big oil, of oligarchs in this country, and be able to build a government that works for all of us.
Where did the Democrats fall in that? Because I think there is definitely a I'm just gonna be nice and say there's a hopeful commitment by many people to the Democrats, feeling that they are counter to that. In your work and in your experience, where would you say they stand at this point?
You don't need to be nice. I would say we are often not nice. Yeah, I mean, I would say like One thing I'll say is that I don't think it's always helpful to think of parties as like one thing. I think of parties as arenas that we can contend for power within. And yeah, I'm like, a lot of the establishment Democratic Party is trash. Like they have been cowardly and they have like failed to address the root of the problem. And I think they have huge responsibilities in terms of how we got to where we are now. And also, I think that like the Democratic Party is not just the people in charge of the Democratic Party. There are like enormous amounts of people who would be considered the Democratic base that are also the party and have control over the party. And I'm like, that is like that I think about the insurgent wing of the party that's rising, in my opinion, the opportunity that there is for it to continue rising. Like, I think we've really
The insurgent wing of the Democratic Party. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like the I would say like people like AOC, but also people like Zoran Mamdani and Brandon Johnson. And like there are these people who are trying to redefine the Democratic Party to be more than what it has been historically. And frankly, I think that that's the only way for the Democratic Party to survive. Like this milquetoast, like bland policies that they put forward where they just keep advocating for the status quo and they're too afraid to like say anything bad to Trump because like decorum and like gotta follow the rules, like that's not gonna cut it. Nobody wants to vote for that. And I think part of what we're trying to do is be like, we are going to create the mass movement energy that is so strong that, you know, politicians are like weather winds. They will follow where they think they can win. And I don't think there's any way that Biden would have won the 2020 election if it weren't the huge uprisings that happened before against Trump. And I'm like, mass movement momentum actually does allow politicians to like shift in the moment. I think the key is that we actually are able to translate that mass movement momentum into like power to actually block things. Like, I'm like, can we actually translate that to, we have 20 million people in the streets, and also if you don't pass what we want you to pass, we will turn back into the streets and like not let life go on as normal until you give us what we want. And I think having that not just mobilization power, but organizing power to translate it for the long haul is really key. But I think that's how you shift the party. And I'm like, yeah, I don't trust a lot of the Democratic Party. And also we have to see them as an arena where we contend for power.
Dejah, how has your ideologies, your belief in this system, if at all, shifted since you joined Sunrise?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been having a lot of conversations with friends around this where you like enter as a baby organizer and people are pitching you on the visions and the plans and you're like, anything is possible. And I remember 2020 when Bernie was running and I went out to Iowa to go canvass for him and he was talking about Sunrise and his rallies, which is like huge for a presidential nominee to like
absolutely
give airspace to your movement. And I think over the years, we've, you know, seen the Jamal Bowman Cori Bush where we're like canvassing and doing work and, you know, these institutions like AIPAC just crush them.
Yeah.
And I think it has been pretty clear how the tweaking around the system has not worked for our organizing. And that's why I feel most excited about Sunrise's long-term plan of like, we need masses of people organized to push for a real like revolution of sorts, I'd like to say, of our current political system. Like we need a government, like Aru has talked about this before in the past, of like that can legislate and pass bills week after week to address not just the climate crisis, but other issues and ills in society. And we don't have a government that does that. And so I think in a lot of ways, I've like gotten closer to the root of the problem, which I think demands a far greater organized response. And, you know, I'm still going to knock doors. I live in New York City, have been knocking doors for Zoran and really excited to see what happens. Do not want Eric
Zoran
Adams
need to come on the show.
You should get him on the show. He, you know,
I mean, I have his contact, but then I part of me was like, so I want a politician on the show.
But he has.
So his one of his comms people DM'd me, but they were like, you should talk about Zoran's, like they wanted me to talk about Zoran. And I was like, oh, baby, no, like that's not what this is. If you want to come on and talk about it, or you want to come on and talk about it, fine. But I'm not going to be, I don't endorse candidates.
Yeah.
I don't.
I mean, I think the thing that's interesting for him is he's like talking about issues that affect everyday people, about free buses in New York City, about childcare, about rent, about the housing crisis. And it's like, we need to be speaking to issues that affect people materially. And also, thinking about the organizing around climate, connecting those issues with how those will worsen and I guess be exacerbated by the climate crisis.
So basically what I'm gathering though is that you guys both feel like we have left the reformist stage.
I think we need I think we need huge transformations to our political system. Otherwise, shit will fall apart. That is how I think about the next few years.
Now, in terms of the young people that you're working with, what do we consider young people?
Yes. So we organize
be young at heart.
We do have a young at heart movement. Yeah. So we organize folks under 35. And so many people are like, what happens when I turn 36? I'm 29. So I got 6 more years. But yeah, we organize folks under 35. That's how we define youth. We have high schoolers who are organizing across the country, college students, and then like young adults in communities across the country.
Okay. And then, so the thing about it is that for real reform, for real revolution to happen, right? Because I think when people think about revolution, they literally just think of Fidel Castro. Like that's where they're like, are we all wearing green? You know, are we walking through the Cuban countryside? And there's just so many multiple prongs of revolution that have to take place in this nation. How do we see the revolution for climate change existing in a real way in terms of your strategy and your objective?
Yeah, I think it's like the reason that climate is a really key part of this to me is that it is going to force capitalism and society into crisis. Like there is no way for it not to. It is currently doing it. Yes. And as that happens, there is a choice that we have about whether people want a better version of the world or a worse version of the world. And it is actually just that simple. And being like, when this happens, wouldn't you rather actually have like a government that is able to help you rebuild your home or help you relocate? Wouldn't you rather have a government that like builds seawalls? And I'm like,
no, let me just correct it because I feel like we're getting into Spiel's territory, and I want to get us out of Spiel territory. What it like earlier in the conversation, Dejah said, like, I want to talk about like the actual plans that we have that are about activating people beyond just, meeting and learning and doing sit-ins. Like because a revolution requires a multi-pronged approach, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So what is the movement? How is the movement moving in ways that you can tell us? Because I know there's also stuff that has to be kept on the low.
Yeah, Dejah, you want to talk about 2028 stuff?
Yeah, so we sort of have like a 3-phased approach over the next 4 years for how we want to approach sort of building the types of power to upend society and get a government that can like govern around climate. The first piece of it is around winning the public, and specifically for our fight around climate, connecting big oil to the current administration. And it's like pretty clear people aren't really thinking that much about the role of the fossil fuel industry and big oil and sending our entire society towards quite literally collapse. Yeah. And I'm like, these motherfuckers, to be honest, should not be walking around comfortably in society. And so for us, it's like, how do we do campaigning over the next year to really paint big oil and big oil oligarchs as the villain? I think some of this also connects to the Trump administration, just given, I think it was like $445 million they gave to his administration. They're like fueling fascism. And so how do we come after big oil? The second phase is, Aru, what's the second?
We talked about toppling the pillars, basically. Yes. We're like, I don't know if you've heard, the United Auto Workers has put out a call for mass strikes in 2028. Yeah. And we've basically been like, we want to align ourselves with that strategy and have.
Why are we waiting till 2028?
Honestly, it just takes a lot of time to get majorities of people willing to like not go to work or school. And I think that's why.
Fascinating.
and
I wish it was sooner, but it might happen. Like I always say that you never know what happens.
Well, to your point,
happen sooner.
It's pushing people to experience things in real time. Yes. So it may push a response to happen in real time sooner.
And I think the other bit of it is that there are things that are happening externally that we can't control. There are like trigger events, so we call them, that might be climate disasters. I'm surprised that LA wildfires weren't one event where people aren't waking up to like entire communities burning down.
Have you been to LA?
I haven't been to LA since.
But I
I
mean,
was
have
there
you
during
been
the
to LA? Like,
fires.
have you spent a time in LA?
Yeah. So I don't spend that much time there, but
It ain't that kind of town, baby. Like they're
yeah.
like, oh my God, fires. That's crazy. So do you want to go to the Grove? Since
But
we
the
can't go
thing,
to Palisades, let's just go to the Grove. Yeah. Like
and it's sad and devastating that it's going to take a disaster that takes probably many lives in this country, but there will be moments or red lines that are, so to speak, crossed that we need to be ready as movements to respond to, and it may be sooner that we need to be calling for boycotts at the scale that we've never seen before in this country, for levels of like civil disobedience and mass noncompliance. And like as Aru said, it just does take a lot of organizing and education of people and skill building to get our society ready for the types of strikes that we're trying to organize towards.
someone in the chat just said not everyone in LA is like that.
Yes.
Not everyone anywhere is
Is-
like anything.
yes.
But the culture of a place is what ends up being the mass response to things, right? So, for instance, we talk about bad apple cops, but it's not that. It's that policing itself is a culture of harm. So even if there are good people in the police department, they are not protected by the police department. There are good people in LA. There are people that care about the way things move in LA. However, the culture of LA is industry and capitalism. And literally, the mayor of LA, a Black woman named Karen Bass, has put so much money behind policing and behind corporate dollars that it is very clear that she also does not care in the same way. So miss me with that. Okay, sorry. I just had to. Just had to. I hate a not all. I hate a not all argument. It's straw man. So we have some fabulous questions. And, you know, there has been a number of climate disasters that are happening right now. Like, we're seeing Josh Hawley literally asking Kristi Noem, like, will you tell President Trump about Missouri? We really need help in Missouri. It's like, well, you should have thought of that when y'all was saying that FEMA didn't matter no more.
Yes.
Well, this is why I think this whole like left, like Republicans, Democrats thing is I'm like, listen, oligarchs and control are screwing over all of us. I go to rural areas and I talk to people, and sometimes those people are tracking climate change and climate effects more than a lot of people in cities because they see it right in their backyard.
Yeah.
And I think like this is the place where I'm like, climate has a real possibility to have populist appeal because people feel it in their lives.
Yes.
It matters.
Look at what happened with Hurricane Helene. You know, like those people are still rebuilding. They did not get support. And ultimately, they're like, even if we were political in response to being MAGA, et cetera, before, like now we're political in terms of why is our government not caring about us as people? And I feel like that's part of the education that you guys are doing is changing what political means, right?
And
political is not about
changing
just
the
like
culture too.
Yes. Well, that's the whole thing that has to shift is this culture, right? Like political is not what party you are a gang member of. And that's what some people really think. Like they're flagging like they're Democrats, like twisting up their fingers for the Krats. And ultimately political means you are aware of how the government is informing and involved in your life. And like you understand that that is not something that's passive. Folks in our chat are not passive, and so they have some questions. And Dejah is from Chicago, so she is also not passive. So
let's get into it.
Aru, where are you from?
I'm from Minneapolis.
All right, Minneapolis. Minneapolis is also not passive, as we learned with the George Floyd protest.
Very not passive. Do not take things lying down.
So Nigel D asks, is there a gap between the material lives and concerns and caring about climate change? I'm not sure I understand this question, but maybe you all do.
I think I do.
Okay.
Dejah, do you want to start or should I?
Yeah, I think I'm interpreting some of it of like, how do we make a stronger connection? I think, and sometimes I felt this as a young Black organizer, really trying to figure out how in Sunrise we organize young Black, Latina, poor and working class folks about climate is not the thing my family is thinking about on the day to day. It's like jobs, our school system, gun violence, and climate
how do we merge? I see.
Yeah, and I think how do we actually connect the issues that people are materially facing with the climate crisis? And I think the Green New Deal as sort of the vision that we were really organizing around has been the way to do that, to say, like the crises around gun violence is connected to like disinvestment in education, in jobs. The Green New Deal is not just about decarbonizing. It's also about how do we put massive amounts of investments in our school systems and retrofit them, and how do we invest in teachers, because that's like low carbon work, and those types of things.
I went on a tour in 2014 called the Toxic Tour, and I went on with
In New
Hip Hop
Orleans?
Caucus.
Was it
Actually,
in
it
New
was
Orleans?
all over the nation. So we
Oh, wow.
went to.
I love the Hip Hop Caucus. They're awesome.
Yeah, shout out to the Reverend. We went to Detroit. We went to Virginia Beach, or like Portsmouth, I think. We went to DC, like, and Baltimore. And we did go down to Louisiana, but I don't feel like we went to New Orleans. I can't remember. 2014 feels like it was a very long time ago.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I learned on that tour was just that, you know, I think some people think of climate change and they're thinking of just like weather, not realizing that your climate that you exist in is not simply just the weather, it's the air you breathe.
Yes.
Right? It's the water that you have access to, it's the food that you eat, and that corporations are affecting that, which then also affects the weather.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also, like, we shouldn't be paying utility bills these days. Like, we should have been developing like solar power and wind power that allowed like publicly owned power. Like, you have bills you pay. Food is gonna get more expensive. Like, the money that comes out of your pocket, the bills you pay every day, are going to be affected by climate change and already are. And I think part of what the Green New Deal does is like, it's hard sometimes to make those connections. So it's like, here are all the ways that stopping climate change can make your life better. And that's what's at the heart of the Green New Deal.
I think people think that if jobs go away, it's not replaced with resources. And what they think is that if jobs go away, then I will have nothing. And then if I have nothing, then I can't live. Not understanding that really what it is that if jobs go away that are harming people and other systems are put in place for those particular jobs, a lot of the jobs that you're doing are not necessarily attached to like a specific skill or a specific preference, but just getting a check. So if the reason you're at that job is to get a check that you no longer have to pay, that gives you a greater opportunity to now go do something that you actually care about. And it relieves society. This is socialism, guys. It relieves society of this thing up here. And for what it's worth, majority of society is not interested in being a billionaire. And I think that's the thing that really gets misrepresented when we watch shows like the Kardashians, like and all of this, like fantasizing about celebrity. It's that most people actually are like, I really just want to be able to comfortably feed my family and like have joy.
And have time to rest.
Yes.
And not
like
work
opulence
50 plus.
is not really. Yeah. And for the record, let me just tell you, as somebody who has chased wealth, there was a well-bodied Black man from Brooklyn, New York, who once said, "Mo money, mo problems."
Yeah.
And he wasn't wrong. Okay. No. He wasn't wrong.
I think something that you reminded me of in sharing some of that is just like the visioning piece of it, where I'm like, there are so many ways we can operate as a society. And there's a book, What If We Get It Right, by Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson. She's like a Black marine biologist, really like hopeful book. But I'm like, I dream of days where there are like youth, like job programs where people intergenerationally get to come together to like invest in parks in their community, do political education around climate science. Like there are so many different ways to structure society and get at some of the like isolationism, individualism. And I think the thing about the Green New Deal that's really exciting is like, how do we envision a new society post-capitalism that is not running on like extractive industries, extractive employers and jobs? And yeah, I think that's like just really exciting to think about, like there is space to vision what our society looks like. And right now we're living in the dreams of billionaires. And I'm like, how do we actually build the power to live in the dreams of working people? Yes. And I'm like, society will look significantly better and people will be so much more happier. And we need to like tell people that so that we're able to like build the power and bring people in our movements to like struggle and fight for that. Because I think there's the other thing.
Oh,
the last thing I'll say is we were on a abroad trip last year and talked to someone who was like, I just think Americans are too comfortable. There will never be revolution in the society. And I think we have to like make it pretty clear that the way that we're living right now in this country is also like not good. I think about housing.
People are very comfortable with their discomfort.
Yeah, I'm like we have this weird thing where the essentials are way too expensive, like healthcare and housing and childcare and elder care, and they distract us from that by giving us cheap things that break in a few months and we can just consume, and they break apart all the time. I'm talking about like fast fashion all the time. And to fill the fact that we're not getting our basic needs met, but people are tricked into thinking that they are okay because you can buy a haul on Shein, you know, and like that is the way that modern capitalism is operating in a way that I think is really dangerous.
So I'm from Grenada. My people are from Grenada.
Yes.
And
I got to visit this March.
Really?
Yes.
Grenada.
I love exploring, hiking, waterfalls. There was like Seven Sisters. Yeah, it was a whole thing, but beautiful country. Yes.
You went to Seven Sisters.
Yes.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, while I was growing up, like we were always, and anybody who has immigrant relatives knows this, you always got to show up with at least 2 additional suitcases of all the things that are super expensive there that are inexpensive in the United States, right? And it would be things like toothpaste, lotion, soap, etc. And I just remember when I was growing up being like, why is everything so expensive here? That is how I look at here now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why is everything so expensive here? Like, it's not even a difference anymore. Like, when people are like, bring us this, I'm like, it's the same here.
That is so relatable, and I've been through the same experience with my family. Yeah.
Where's your family from?
From southern India, Kerala. Yeah.
Oh, so y'all got the suitcases. I mean, it's a very real thing, y'all. And people come, and it's literally like you're like a mobile convenience store. Like people come and they go through the bags, and they're like, I'll take this, I'll take this, I'll take this. You're like, thank you. Okay, so Cassie Carnahan has a question. Esteemed guest, what is up with these earth bag homes and earth ships? I haven't heard of any of this, so I don't know if you guys have. Are these realistic?
I haven't heard of this.
Okay, let me look it up. Earth bag homes.
I've heard about this a little bit. It's basically, earth bag homes. I don't know about earth ships. It's like making homes out of like clay materials, basically, is my understanding, and like sustainable building practices. I don't know the most about it, and so I'm going to give a slightly general answer. But I feel like what I will say is I do think we need to be really innovating on a lot of the ways that we build things at scale. And I think that includes like creativity and different materials that we use and all of that. And I know that, just from an emissions perspective, trying to look outside of concrete or how to make green concrete is like a big question that people have of like how to reduce emissions, which is where some of the earth bag home stuff comes on. I don't have a better answer on whether these are really realistic specifically. I haven't looked into them as much.
Well, when I looked it up just now real quick, I mean, most of these pictures are of homes, are replicates of homes that are in other nations. Like this is a home in Oman that is made from clay, right? And we know that when you go and you travel and you see these other ways of life, particularly in the continent, they have been living in sustainable homes for quite some time. I mean, of course, we are used to these palaces that we live in, but they're building homes of clay, they're building sustainable homes of wood. There's a really famous clip of this carpenter who was on a show, like a call-in show in Britain, where the very just a-hole host was like, all right, so you're a carpenter, is that right? You're a carpenter. So please explain to me about what being a carpenter has to do with sustainability. What is that? What's the difference between what you do and concrete? And the guy is like, well, I mean, it's sustainable because you can grow trees. And then the guy's like, well, you can go concrete. You can grow concrete. And the guy just sits there in silence, like, because that's nonsense. He doesn't say anything. And the British guy and the host is like, well, we're going to not talk to James because we don't need to hear any of that nonsense, any of that bollocks. But I don't know about the earth homes, but what I will say is that exactly to your point, like the sustainability, the requirement, the ways to live, like so much of the way we live is just because colonialism. That's it. For instance, in Grenada, so many of the ways that homes have been built in Grenada were just built off of like traditions of colonialism, taking how they built homes in England to come and build it the same way on a tropical island that has hurricanes. Like these two things don't align. And so often the homes get battered and destroyed, but then they get rebuilt the exact same way. And it doesn't consider the fact that no, this part of the island, the wind is coming from this way. Don't build this like this.
There's
so
a
I'm
lot of
starting to
indigenous
see-
wisdom that we need to like
Yes.
be taking into account as we figure out how to
Adapt.
decarbonize, adapt. There's just so much knowledge. And sometimes it'll, because we are changing our climate, it might look like adapting that wisdom, but there's a lot there, a lot of richness there that we need to integrate into our government programs, into the way that we build things, the way that we plan cities and towns.
So Ross asks, how do y'all take care of yourselves as advocates for a place we as a species are destroying?
Yeah, honestly, the biggest thing for me is organizing. Like, I don't know. I think there are probably many young people that are sitting completely isolated, completely anxious, completely in despair. And I think being able to be in community, whether it's like I'm involved in the New York City hub, being on the National Organization of Sunrise, like with other people that are like wrestling and taking action and getting arrested and like standing up for the things we believed in. And then there's also the other little things where I'm like, I enjoy reading and meditating. And like, sometimes I just want to go out and enjoy life with my friends and not be so existential about the state of the world. But I think organizing is the place where I've been able to like quell or like get out some of my angst. Yeah, manage the anxiety that I have about the future. Cause it's scary if you really sit with the level of devastation that's happening, with the current administration and what we have locked in around climate change. It is terrifying. And I think, organizing has been the way.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think like so much of our society we are trained or forced to alienate ourselves. Like there's so much by which I mean like we are disconnected from our labor, from the nature. Like we are forced to like numb ourselves to the horrors of what is happening. And I think a lot of like capitalist like self-care is like, oh, like don't worry about it, like protect your peace. That type of vibe I think is actually like, I'm not saying never do that. Like I also, to be clear, like put down my phone, close like my
I take naps sometimes.
But if you always do that, like to me the most transformative things of self-care have actually been when I have faced the grief of the world with other people and have like I don't know, like Dejah and I have like been in rooms crying together about like what is going on in the world. And then we're like, and we're going to hold each other through that and we're going to choose to fight anyway. And I think that is actually like the truest form of being able to move through the difficulty of the world involves facing it and choosing to fight, not avoiding it. And that's what I find organizing helps me do.
Yeah, I think the other thing as a little book nerd is just looking to history. Like I think so much about my ancestors, enslaved Black people, and what they went through in this country and the odds that were overcome, and thinking about many other movements and the civil rights movement and young organizers in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee who were like taking buses into the South and facing violence. Like I think really grounding in history and being like, actually history happens and transformation in this country happens through struggle. And being like, we are not special. And that there's like a lineage that we lie within is really grounding for me when there are moments that feel overwhelming.
Can you all each tell me what your environment was like in a real quick way, like what your environment was that you were raised in that got you here?
Yeah,
I'm really trying to like
connect,
for people to understand like this is how these people arrive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I grew up in Chicago and my parents met at FedEx. I have memories being in the break room watching
because FedEx called me 3 times while I was recording this show.
Oh, really?
I had to take a call earlier because
it was Dejah's parents. They were like,
it was Dejah's parents.
Yes. That my parents met at FedEx, and then when my dad wasn't cutting hair, he was a barber. So I also grew up in a barbershop. And when he wasn't cutting hair, he was fishing. and he would take me. I have a sister. She didn't come, but he would take me fishing with him. And it was there.
Wait, did y'all see the shade? She
Uh,
didn't come.
No,
Whatever.
no, I still
went.
think about this to this day. I'm like, Daddy, why did you invite me? Where was my sister? But it like was very pivotal for me. I like didn't like fishing. We would go to the bait shop, and I was like, the worms are kind of gross, but I loved being out on the water. And my dad was like, had his beer, and he was fishing, and I was like, Daddy, are there sharks in this? He's like, no, it's a lake. And I just like had all these curiosity and questions and fascination. And so, you know, wanted to study environmental science and become a marine biologist, and then got very politicized when I went to college and studied abroad in this insane program where we went to Morocco, Vietnam, Bolivia. It was a climate program. Also during that was learning about Marx and neoliberalism and how that impacted many countries across the world and how that was contributing to climate. And
But was any of this being talked about in your home or at school?
it was school and college and study abroad where I started to like connect the science with the like systemic issues. And I was like, oh, this is like an issue of
Because you know, once Greta Thunberg started doing the same thing, they was like, get her
where
over there. Stop, she's wearing a keffiyeh. Oh my God.
Yeah. And like standing up for like doing organizing around Palestine now, which is, you know, great to see connecting the climate. But yeah, no, it wasn't like my parents were activists. They were often like work really fucking hard and do what you have to do to be able to sustain yourself. And it was like being politicized through these different experiences where I was like, oh, a lot of the issues, because there was also just things around like food access growing up where I was politicized around like, why is there a McDonald's and Burger King on every corner? And understanding how that connects to like housing discrimination and capitalism. But yeah, it was the politicization and being like, oh, a lot of these issues are actually connected to issues of greed and power. And it's like movement that will address them. So kind of
How about
found
you, Aru?
this.
Yeah, my parents were leftists. I told you that my family's from Kerala. Kerala is one of the very few democratically elected communist governments in the world, and so it was like very normal for me to go back home and see like hammers and sickles painted on things,
Like
and
in
that was
India?
like in India. Yes, it's a state in India. It's
Can you spell it for me?
Kerala, Kerala. It's also really pretty. It's come through. Yeah, it's really cool. But my parents sort of had some of that orientation, and I feel like really raised me to think of myself as part of a global majority. Like I remember a lot during the Iraq War, like I remember this like nightmare that I had when I was like 5 or 6 years old that like George Bush came to like bomb our school because like
What?
because I think the way that my parents thought about it is like these are people who look like us, and like they are like there was like a sense of like there is a global majority who is being exploited by a small number of people, and that was like something that I grew up very deeply feeling. So Palestine activist, like I remember my parents like followed BDS when I was a kid, and I was annoyed when I was like 7 because I was like, why can't we get this? And they were like, no. but I follow it now. But at 7,
I love it. Why can't we get this? Also, you all need to look up Kerala. I'm going to Kerala.
It's so pretty. It's so nice. Yeah,
it's on the water. It's giving.
It's beautiful. And that's the other thing too, is I think just like seeing, I don't know, like my grandparents have a farm there. I think like they're just like feeling the ways that climate will deeply affect the place that my parents call home. There were like these really intense floods in Kerala in 2018. And that was, I joined Sunrise before then, but when that was the moment where I was like, oh, this is like not just something I spend my spare time doing. This is like a life commitment and a life purpose, because it felt so, I mean, it was in my backyard, or in my grandparents' backyard. So that was a really transformative moment for me.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. I always try to get to like the heart of people who do this work, because that's what ends up driving us in general. So we have 2 more questions. Carmen asks, with Memorial Day coming and the flag flying, how do you convince people that the military is the biggest polluter in the world? They're like, are they?
No, I think there's stats that there are. I think we've done like political education on social media around this. That's pretty clear.
One thing I always think about with the military is I'm like, people sometimes are like, oh, a federal jobs program, that's so unrealistic. And I'm like, we have a federal jobs program. It's called the military, and we use it to send people to kill other people. And what if instead of doing that, we had a federal jobs program where people were like building windmills and solar panels and teaching kids? And I'm like,
Things
that's
that are actually useful.
nicer.
Yeah.
That's how I think about like reframing, because I'm like, people
Are
join
there
it
other
thinking,
nations
like,
that have that?
what?
Are there other nations that have federal jobs programs that are structured in that way?
I think there are a lot of like federal service years. Like, I know that my mom did like a federal service year in India where she like worked in a hospital for a while. Like, then like that was like a thing that a lot of people do. I don't know if it's like everyone does it. Like, it's a lot of like opt-in type things, which the military is also opt-in.
Well,
but
some places.
yeah,
I mean,
it's
in
true,
Israel,
not
it's
always.
not.
But yeah, I'm just
In
like,
Korea,
people
it's
join the
not.
military for like free college and free healthcare.
Yeah.
And we can
just give it
to people without
which
that.
is also why. And I saw a video the other day where someone said that they woke up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and it hit them like, oh, we don't take care of our veterans because they're the best trained to lead a revolution. I was like, can you share your bathroom night videos more often, because you saying the things like and she was like, it just hit me like, oh, that's why we don't take care of our veterans. Like, they have been trained to only be useful when they're used, and then once they are no longer used, if they remained healthy, they could then be useful against the same government that used them.
And a lot of them are very radicalized against the government. I mean, I think this is like a really big thing that I'm like, I really want to talk about the military in a way that doesn't turn people against the people in the military who are often like Black and brown working class people.
But that's gonna have to happen.
Yeah,
that's gonna have to happen, Aru.
Yeah,
because shame is like the most effective way to get people to stop doing what they're doing.
Yeah,
isn't it sad? Like, I feel like we should just be able to be like, here's why. It's just better. And people are like, that's not a good enough reason. That's not, make me feel bad about doing it, and then I'll stop doing it.
Shame does move people.
Shame moves people, particularly in this nation where everything is so much about optics and like what career you're attached to. It's like, I feel like if people felt like they could, also at the end of the day, if people felt like they could get resources in another way, they would not join the military, which is a lot of the reason why those resources are simply just not presented.
I think that's the key to me, because I'm like, it's like I think shame often moves people if you have the resources to make another choice.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, if you don't, no amount of like shaming someone who's like, well, this is like the actual only choice that makes sense for me. And that's why I'm like, the alternative is important, and talking about the alternative is important.
So our last question comes from Nigel. Nigel, you got up in here twice today. Okay, because this is a good question. What is the role of technology in all of this, especially with Generation Alpha and the way the world is going? And I'm going to tack on to that, AI.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was in this like politics of climate change course, and they talk there was like a lot of arguments against technology as a solution to climate crisis. Like, in some ways, when you think about it, the advancement in technology got us, like, industrial revolution to the climate crisis, and the unintended consequences of technology often are so high that it is not worth it. And I'm thinking about AI specifically.
Yeah.
And there's just like so much information and data coming out around just like the energy inputs that are needed to fuel AI, and how it's like the water that's needed. I know I've seen videos in like Arizona where folks are like, we don't have water because of this new AI facility. And so I think technology is often a lazy excuse for us to actually address at the root the problem. Like, of course, there are like technological solutions around like solar panels and like things that we need to do to upgrade our energy systems. And I'm not convinced that like AI or technology is going to solve the climate crisis. Like, this is a crisis of like economics and our government and political will and greed. And you can't like technology your way out of those issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like sort of building off of that. To me, I do think we need to like invest in technological improvement. And to me, I'm like, I was on a trip to Cuba with Dejah actually a year ago, and we were talking about social media. And in my mind, social media is just this thing that like pulls people out of being present in their lives and like is so divisive in so many ways and all this. And then somebody was just like, the reason that social media is like that in the US is because it has a profit incentive under capitalism.
Yes.
And so it tries to hold your attention all the time. And I think that's really important with AI as well. I think like anything, I'm like, at the end of the day, if you change the fundamental incentives of your economic system, that these things are just tools. Like AI can be terrible or AI could be a force for good. And having a government that is actually looking at the whole, looking at the climate effects, looking at the environmental and water effects, and also looking at like how could we unlock this to be a tool for good is what you need in any type of technology. And like, yes, I really agree with what Dejah's saying. Like technological development is not an excuse to dodge the fundamental problems of power in our society. And also, if we have power in our society, I think we can harness and use technology in amazing and cool ways. But we don't get to, a lot of oil and gas companies are like, yeah, don't worry about it, carbon capture. And I'm like, that's not gonna work, you know?
Yeah, we need to stop burning fossil fuels. And you can't,
Yeah.
So before we go, just for the sake of taking us back to 7th grade science, name some fossil fuels.
Yes, you have carbon dioxide, you have methane, CH4. Those are like two of the biggest pollutants.
And the way you interact with them in your life is usually that you are using your like gas for the most, gas stoves, gas to heat your house. And also like, you know, I'm not someone who likes to boil this all down to individual choices. Like the industries that we run on, like are built on these things.
Well, y'all, thank you for your movement. And how can people under 35 get involved with Sunrise?
Yes, we also have ways for people over 35 to get involved as well.
Oh, okay.
A couple of things for folks. You can check us out on social media. We have an Instagram that shares a lot of the different types of organizing that we're doing at Sunrise Movement. It's at Sunrise MVMT. We also have some other things. If you're under 35 and you're like, I want to join the fight to stop the climate crisis and the oligarchy, you can become a member. And if I drop some of the stuff in the chat, will people get that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great.
It's
yes.
smvmt.org/member.
smvmt.org/member. Okay.
Yeah, and then the only other thing is we're about to launch a campaign in a month. And if folks are interested in getting a deeper sense of our strategy and what we're like taking on over the next year, encourage folks to sign up for our campaign launch. And I dropped that link in the chat as well.
And just to say, like, join your hub. Like, I actually get so much like social joy and purpose from my hub. Like, if you are sitting alone and you're like, I don't know where to go, like doing this with other people makes so much of a difference. And we have so many hubs across the country. There is probably one in your city. And if there's not, we can help you start one.
Did you hear that last part, y'all? She said, if there's not, they can help you start one. And I think that is the kind of people here in this chat. Folks who don't just want to learn, and this takes us back full circle. The Sunrise Movement is not about just talking about it. It's about being about it. So thank you guys so much for exemplifying that. And y'all, you can go to sunrisemovement.org. Go to sunrisemovement.org, and all the info is there. And again, follow them on the Instagrams. And thank you guys so much for joining us and being so, effusive with your knowledge. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
Fun. Yeah.
Thank y'all. Have a good one.
Bye.
So there you have it, y'all. I've been talking about it, saying we need to get more conversation around how climate change is a part of the conversation. So I was really happy that we were able to do that today with the Sunrise Movement. And shout out to everybody on the replay who is listening and checking this out. This has really just been a really dope, thoughtful episode that I feel like we should just wrap up right here. Like, I was going to talk about forever, but I'm just going to save that for Monday. I feel like we've taken in a lot of information today. We've taken in quite a bit of information today. So I feel like we should just let that be. But one thing that actually fits perfect with this is that the latest episode of Small Doses Podcast is side effects of being in a hurricane. And it is me chronicling when I was in a hurricane in Grenada last year during my birthday, July 1st. And let me tell you, climate change is what caused that hurricane. It's a volcanic island, so much so that we literally have a dormant volcano in the center of the island, and there's a national park around it that is a rainforest, and it's the Granny Tang Rainforest National Park. And you're not allowed to swim in the lake because people go in that lake and then they die. And the theory is that there's a suction in the lake, and if you go in the lake, the suction will pull you into the dormant volcano and spit you out on the shores of the island. And if we really want to go into it, you know, West Indians, it ain't a dormant volcano that's pulling you in. It's a witch, an obia, or a junkanoo. Anywho. So go check out the latest episode of Small Doses Podcast. Side effects of being in a hurricane. All right. Side effects of being in a hurricane. Your girl was in it. Listen, I slept in the shower because I was so afraid. I remember also, by the way, I was on Instagram all day because I was just in this room and we had Wi-Fi until we didn't. And I was just okay. And I was just making all these videos and someone was like, why don't you go outside and get some friends instead of just being in here making videos? And I was like, I'm in a hurricane. That's where I'm at. I'm in a hurricane. So, yeah. But when I was in Grenada last time, a few weeks ago, I was asking about, the hurricane, and everyone was telling me that for those on the main island of Grenada, because there's also Carriacou and Petit Martinique, which really suffered a huge amount of physical damage due to the nature of the hurricane. They said that a lot of the people on the island who may not have suffered damage to their homes really suffered mentally because of PTSD that they were having from Hurricane Ivan. And Hurricane Ivan devastated devastated Grenada in 2010. And it really just, decimated the island. The hurricane itself was bigger than the island. And it just kind of plopped over and just churned up so much. It was really, really a devastating experience. My mom was in Hurricane Janet in 1955 in Grenada, and she said that to this day, she still thinks about it. She can still remember it. She still has sense memory and PTSD about Hurricane Janet. So, it's definitely not simply just a conversation around how climate change affects us in the physical fashion of our ability to live physically in safety, but also mentally in safety, because these events are incredibly impactful on our nervous systems. They're incredibly, impactful on our ability to feel safe where we are. So that's a whole other aspect that I think a lot of people just overlook and don't consider. So want to make sure that you guys consider going to my free production of What Would the Ancestors Say, which is going down May 31st at the People's Forum here in New York City. It is happening on Saturday, May 31st at 6 p.m. 6 p.m. The show is free, but we please ask for donations to the People's Forum, as well as come through to purchase some merch. I will have the Ancestor Calling cards. I will have the Harriet Tubman patches. I will also have What Would the Ancestors Say tote bags. And you can also, if you really got some extra bread, you can buy a meet and greet ticket to help support. So thank you guys for those who've continued to support What Would the Ancestors Say. I was just feeling really kind of dejected last night. I don't know why. I've just been feeling my own things. And I had to just remind myself, don't get discouraged, get determined, and stick through and come through and really keep on what you're doing with what you're doing. And so I say that message to myself, and I want to send that message to all of you out there, because, we also live in a society of capitalism that really makes you feel like there's only one version of success. and that when you are not necessarily reaching a certain monetary goal, or you're not reaching a certain level of visibility goal, that you're not getting there. I know I talk about this extensively because it is an indoctrination that is very deep within me, that I am constantly having to flush out of my system. And part of doing that is verbalizing it and sharing with you all. So we can continue to big up each other and support each other in that. And I want everybody to have a great rest of the week. As you know, we are here Monday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern. Please leave comments after. Please send this through the algorithm. They are absolutely, definitely trying to suppress. I mean, yesterday's episode got like 2,000 views or some nonsense like that. As you can see, we're only getting 356 viewers. We used to get 700. So clearly there are efforts that are suppressing this show, and that's just the way it goes. So we end up having to continuously make efforts to fight that. So I appreciate all of you guys who have committed yourself to coming through Monday through Wednesday. There is a version of life where after my week, there is a version of life where after my month of July, we will do this once a week. And I hope that's okay with y'all. But what it will do is it will allow me to write more. It will allow me to be more in the community. And it will basically be like the show is once a week, but it's longer. And I guess the question I would have for you guys is, would you prefer the show? What day of the week? I feel like Monday would probably be the best day. So I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that. I know some people have said they have trouble tuning in mornings. The reason we do it in mornings is because even if you may have trouble tuning in on mornings, people's brains are the sharpest in the morning. You know, like folks will have a whole day of work, and then now I'm coming to try and like hit them with all of this. It's like, it's too much, you know, it's just too much. But you guys are saying you like Monday or Wednesday. We're getting a lot of, you know what? Let me do this. How about we do this? I'm going to do a little poll real quick. Bear with me. So let's do a little poll. This would also mean that I would do kind of like spontaneous, I would do more spontaneous lives. What day of the week do you prefer for the show? Monday, Tuesday. Your options are Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. Okay, I've started the poll. I'm having to. So like life forces us to have to kind of react. And so often we only get the opportunity to react. And that is what causes so many of us to live in a constant state of frazzle dazzle, where we can't make smart choices and decisions. We can't, like you, yes, Cassie, we can't reassess. We can't recalibrate because we're always in this mode, right? And we're pivoting. And we are making decisions based on reaction versus response. And I feel like for me, that has been where I've been in for the past 3 years, where I haven't had an option to make a really thoughtful choice, because I've had to spontaneously respond. And what I think the trouble with that is that if you're trying to work yourself out of indoctrination, then, and you don't get a moment of like stillness, you're still making decisions based on that indoctrination because you haven't even had a chance to get it out of your system. And we don't have that for our people. We really don't. And I don't think I know that I have been super duper 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 fortunate to not only have access, but to be able to be really taught how to make good choices that don't just make me feel better, but that actually make my life better. And because of this, I've been also able to really listen to Cynthia has been in 3 hurricanes. Cynthia, I feel you. I only been in 1 hurricane, but I've been in like 7 earthquakes, and that's the ones I remember. But I also know that there is a impracticality to being able to continue forward in this life that I'm changing into without shifting. Like, I'm gonna have to shift. And yes, I am reparenting myself. Oh shit, I've been in 2 hurricanes. I was in Hurricane Sandy too. But the thing about it, and Sonia, you just said we know you're very busy apart from this show. And that's the thing. I don't want to be quote unquote busy. Like so much of my work and my life has been around this concept of busy as a reflection of usefulness, of busy as a reflection of efficacy in my movement and activism work. And I feel like a lot of that is not really practical, and it's not really actually effective. Because if you're always spinning your wheels, then you don't get you don't get time to like strategize, right? And you don't get time to build things that have more weight under them. Because you're always building things in response. So, I've definitely in the past few years have had to change my concept of what I consider to be my usefulness, right? And reconsider just how I am living in the world. And Monday is fine. No. Monday is a fine option. I'm just thinking about because Monday, here's the thing. Monday is a fine option if you all think that that's the best day for you all. Like, I'll just figure it out. Because since I would only be doing it once a week, basically Monday will be covering, everything that we may have missed with last week. So I am not really, it really is about what is going to work best for both of us. Like, I'm not tripping. Monday seems to be like far and beyond what you guys. I also know that there's something about this space that is very comforting and uplifting for us. And Mondays allows us to kind of like take this energy and go into the world. You know what I mean? And carry forth the life of the week. I know that for me, I actually am someone who likes Mondays. Like, I think Mondays are really kind of like clean slate energy. But for some people, they look at Monday like it's like, oh, now I got to like start my work week again after the weekend. And so it feels like so I don't think of Monday as necessarily like a terrible thing. Okay, so Janelle said, I really like having the review of daily topics with the guests you bring on Wednesday. I mean, the guests would just come on Monday. You know what I mean? Oh, Reese! We've missed you! You're in Tunisia? Wow! Fabulous. I've been missing some of our folks. Reese, we haven't seen Megan Collier in a long time. I don't know where Raquel been at. Marquise, Nasra. We've been missing a lot of our squad for a minute. So Elijah said that they picked Wednesday as Mercury's day of communication. Also willing to support structured backend as a volunteer until. Okay. So we got Wednesdays and Mondays. Slay Girl said Monday hurts her feelings. I respect it. We are going. Okay, so I also want to let you all know that the tentative dates, the tentative dates for the, what's it called? Hold on. For the AmandaLand Summit. And I only say tentative because we are locking them in, but these are the dates that we are pretty much like, this is what we want to do. September 19th through the 21st. September 19th through the 21st. And the reason we chose this versus August is because we know a lot of you all have children, and during August is when so many of y'all are already, you know, in motion with your families, with your kids, etc. Whereas in September, there may be a better option of being able to kind of set things up because there's structure that has been put back in place with school. So that's what we're looking at, September 19th through the 21st for the AmandaLand Summit. I'll put it on the screen. And remember, you know, it's the 19th in the evening. So it's Friday, September 19th, and it will begin after work hours. And then it will end on Sunday, September 21st, in time for people to get home to start the work week. You see how capitalism is? I got it. We planning this whole thing around the work week. Ain't that something? And it will be in NYC. So I am also working on providing scholarships. Also working on scholarships to be able to support people coming out. So the scholarship would cover your registration fee and hotel. You would still have to cover your airline ticket, but it would cover your hotel. And the scholarship requires that you have to live outside of New York, because ultimately the registration fee is going to be very practical. It is going to be very practical. And I am really wanting to, yes, the young ones can come. Absolutely. The young ones can come. So as of right now, what I'm looking at is Friday night would be a break the ice type of game where we will play together, you know, some type of game. And then we will have a DJ, and it'll be like a mixer type vibes. And then on Saturday, we will have some programming throughout the day. So you will have breakfast, you will have all your meals will be provided. So your breakfast will be provided. There will also be some sort of gathering type of like panel type of event that will happen. Then you'll have two options where you can either go on something that is outside in the world. So we're looking at something that is kind of like a tour of New York resistance sites, or you can participate in something that takes inside, which will be something that will be more artistic, where we'll make like protest signs or something of that nature. And then we'll have lunch. And then after that, we will have a live show of Views from AmandaLand, a live taping of Views from AmandaLand. So that will happen, and dinner. And then the next morning, we'll have some sort of send off, some type of either meditative or just uplifting, but some type of send off that really is about a grounding experience. And then folks will go on their way. And so that is what my vision is. You know, I am doing this for the first time, and I do need to hire somebody that knows how to organize things like this and the logistics of things like this. And I will say this once: I do not expect perfection, but I expect it to come close. So if you're even thinking about being hired, volunteering is another thing, but if you're thinking about putting your name in the hat to be hired, understand, I have a super high standard, and I am not going to lower that. Okay? I'm not going to lower that. So, just saying. Okay. Now, what I would also say is that if you do volunteer, if you are a New York-based person and you volunteer, your fee to attend will be cleared. Okay? Your fee to attend will be cleared if you do volunteer. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put together a Google form where people can actually sign up to participate in certain ways. Miss Latia said, that's how I see social media as well. That's why I'm rarely engaged. I'm always present in real life. So I am a Virgo rising. I do not mess around. That is correct. Slay Girl is asking, am I going somewhere? Why not Monday through Wednesday? Keep listening. I think you're behind in the recording. She's behind in the recording. She'll keep listening and she'll get it. So Raquel is here. Okay, because I was like, we haven't seen Raquel, y'all. Where Raquel at? Oh my God, Allison. Yes, you ain't never lied. We will be ending. Tell me you remember. Yes. So looking forward to this. This is really something that I've always wanted to do something like this, and it never panned out. Like it just never got to materialize in the other spaces, but really glad that we were able to do something like this. Adrienne, yes, there does have to be a sing-along. I need to hire. Kim, I got you. That's my gift to you. I got you. Don't worry about it. So one of our members has been fighting through breast cancer, and we need to send love, send all the love, send all the strength, send all of the fortuitousness, the healing, send all of it right here, AmandaLanders. Okay? Send all of it. Right. So there we have it. So what would we be able to come for one of the days? I live in New Jersey and I would love to come, but can't afford to stay in NYC. Does anyone know? So, here's the other thing about this, Nicole, is that I think that there will be, once we get this organized, there will be people who may say like, oh, well, you can, sleep on my couch, or, I have an extra room, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that that's something that we can also try to figure out, is like some type of posting for, there we go, Cassie, mutual aided out, some type of posting for how people can carpool, et cetera. Because the reality is that that's how community builds. Like it's definitely a necessity to be able to interact with people in that way. And I feel like there's something with us that makes that possible. So, and Fatima's over here talking about, I'd love to donate some money to AmandaLanders to help them come out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get scholarships from like my friends who have money. And then I am also going to create like a mutual aid scholarship that is funded by folks in the AmandaLand community. So once I know the cost for the hotel and the rate, we will create that. The venue is in Manhattan. It's at the People's Forum. So once we create that, then we will be able to give you all the opportunity to donate into that. And then so we'll have a mutual aid scholarship that is definitely provided by the AmandaLanders. So let's see, how did we do with the poll? Okay, let's see how we did with the poll. We got Monday 52%, Wednesday 53%, Tuesday 11%. So let's do a secondary poll. Which of these 2 days? Hold on. Final ask. Which day do you prefer for the show? Monday, Wednesday. I hate typing the word Wednesday. It's so stupid. Raquel said Monday is too much pressure. Why is it too much pressure for who? It's not too much pressure for me. The only thing I will say is that Wednesdays does allow for a continued effort in terms of getting guests. Like Wednesday seems to be like an easier day for people to get guests. I guess like in my linear mind, y'all, I'm like, but Monday is the beginning. So, I'm like, but Monday's like the beginning. So that's how my linear mind is working. But this also means that like we'll have clips that will show up over the course of the week. And so, okay, Raquel said, I'm struggling to accept that the week has started already. It's Wednesday. All right, so let's see what it's looking like. Wednesday is in the lead. Okay, but see, Black Bush says, but Wednesday gets us over the hump. Megan said, I love a Wednesday show personally, LOL. Levi said, or Levy or Levy said, having you in the middle of the week will be heaven for me. Interesting. Okay, because Monday is really getting mollywopped in this poll. Okay. Christiana said, hey, Miss Seals, I too have been missing y'all and have had a major schedule change. I work overnight now, so it's been a challenge to tune in. I hate that you have to work overnight. Let me tell y'all, when I was shooting television and we'd have to do overnight shoots, I don't know how y'all are working overnights. It's not in me. Okay, so Surge Sound said Monday is stress from folks coming back from weekend to work. Wednesdays have Amanda as yet another energy boost that gets us over. Okay, so you're looking at Wednesday as second wind energy. Pete said Mondayers should speak their thoughts now. No, we're gonna be live on Wednesday. Yeah. I'll still be live. Yeah, this is an exchange that I also require. Monday Goddess Code said Monday makes sense because it's ruled by the moon and you're a Cancer, but Wednesday makes sense for your Virgo rising, aka Mercury. Now, the thing about Mercury is also that Mercury is about communication. Andrietta is thinking about me and saying, it would be easy. I want it to be easier for you to get guests. Angela says, I like Monday as a review of the previous week. Okay, here's how we can split the difference. We can split the difference this way. What if Monday nights, I do more of a casual review of the week on a chat, like on a live chat. But on Wednesdays, we do the show and I have guests. What if we do that? Monday nights, it's me and y'all, and we're doing a casual, okay, so this is what happened last week since I saw y'all on Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, we do the show as it exists for real. This is a democracy. This is how a democracy actually works, by the way. See how we're all like, oh, this would work for me, but I understand. Like, this is how it works. Antia is in Spain. Like, hold on. What hour are we talking about so I can make my calculations? So if I do Wednesday at 7, or if I do Wednesday at like 6:30 p.m. or Wednesday at 6, that gives me 3 p.m. in the West, but that gives me, what is that? 9? That's like, if I'm 6 p.m. in New York, what is that for you in Spain? That's like 6 hours ahead in Spain, I think. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Is that 11 in Spain? Right? Isn't it 6 hours ahead in like England, Spain, all that? Because Monday, if I do 6 p.m., oh, it's 5 hours. Okay. So if I do 6 p.m. on Monday of just a casual chat with y'all, that's great. If I do 6 p.m. on Mondays as a start the week casual chat, I still have time to go to Taekwondo. I still have the whole day to, wrap my head around the things. Because what really has to happen, y'all, is I have to be writing more. It is imperative that I write more. Bye, Kiana. Have a good day. On Wednesday mornings, we will do the show at 10 a.m. on Wednesday mornings. So Monday evening on Monday, Wednesday morning on Wednesday. I have to write. And I have to be more present on the page. It's an imperative part of the next phase of my life. So show us what you learned. Okay, Search Sound. This is what I learned in Taekwondo. So I just got my 10th tape, which means I can now test for my belt. So I'm going to show you guys the Signy form. Okay, this is the Signy form. I can't really do it for real, but because of the space being limited, but I'm going to show you the Signy form that I have to test for my orange belt. Chun, B, sir. Okay. Chun, B, sir. Signy form. Signy form, sir. There's no room. Okay. Yeah. Hold on. Brady is looking at me like, man. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah. I can't kick right here. Yeah. I can't kick. I can't kick. Yeah. Chun, B, sir. Okay. And then I also have to do basic block 2. All right. Basic block 2, Chun, B, sir. Okay, here we go. Low block. I want y'all to get the full extent. Low block. Inner block. No, sorry. Chun, B, sir. Basic block 2. Low block. Inner block. Outer block. High block. Neck attack. Knife attack. Spear finger attack. Then, qua. Chun, B, sir. I know I have to take my time. I do everything too fast. Neck attack. Neck and neck is my favorite. I broke a board with my elbow last night, y'all. I broke a board with my elbow last night. So there we are. There we are. The accuracy of this show and tell or performing for the family in the living room. The accuracy of this is bonkers. So you're supposed to do kya. Trees, like that's part of it. It's taekwondo kya. So like you're supposed to do it, you know? And I'm getting really good with the punching and stuff. And my roundhouse kicks are definitely stepping up. My roundhouse kicks are stepping up. So if y'all want to join Patreon, I had put up my belt test on Patreon, and I'm gonna put up my next belt test on Patreon. When I broke the board yesterday, my Taekwondo master was like, "We didn't tape it." I'm like, "This is the world we're in." Yes, Amanda, yeah, seals. So, no, thank you all so much. This is like really. Oh, little Nina wants to show us something. Everyone, come watch Amanda. In my house, it would have been Mandy. Oh, yeah, Mandy want to show us something. Come watch Mandy. Come watch Mandy. Come watch Mandy, y'all. Come. Nah, man, it's really been great to actually, you know what? Let me do this. Let me do this. AmandaLand. PSA. You know, this I was watching Joy James, who's one of my favorite scholars, and she was doing a talk where she was talking about how, you know, everyone is saying, as they should be, that it's going to require community, it's going to require intersectionality for there to be any real shift. And she was saying that she hasn't really heard people talk about the fact that it's not just about like we have a shared L that we're taking. She didn't use those words, but it's that we also need to have shared ideologies. And she was saying that she hasn't heard anybody talking about that. And I was like, I have, Miss James. I have. Because what we have here at Views from AmandaLand is we don't have just people who may have the same frustrations with government, or may be suffering the same discrimination tactics, or, you know, suffering the same L's based on these economic shifts, et cetera. What we have here and what we're building here is a community of people who have shared ideology, who have shared value systems around how to treat each other, around how to treat the earth, around how to treat, you know, even around how to treat themselves, right? And I think in that regard, what we're also seeing is a shift in what our communities begin to look like. And I am somebody who has had a very all-Black community for quite some time. And, you know, at one point in my life, it wasn't that way, and then it became that way. However, that has been greatly diversified in the past 2 years by nature of my becoming a lot clearer about my understanding of the duplicity of this government, of the nefariousness of its actors, of my commitment to Palestinian liberation, and also of my own commitment to self, right? And so those factors have caused an incredibly immense amount of shift in my circle in ways that I feel like in some aspects feel like hurtful, because you're just like, damn, like why couldn't they stick around? But in other ways that becomes so much more expansive. And, you know, we're celebrating the life of Malcolm X this year. You know, it would have been his 100th birthday. And that is what Malcolm experienced when he went to Mecca. He realized like, oh, it's bigger than just this small slice of world that I'm living in. And it's not that we don't know that. I think we always know that, but we're ending up having to deal with our small slice of world in such real time that we don't get to expand that. And so for you all the AmandaLanders out there, just know that I have become so much more of an expanded person by getting to see and hear your thoughts on things from all over the world, from all different classes and gender and race and ethnicities, etc. And then we take it to another level at Patreon, because then when we do our Passage Posse and we do our read, and we're going to be doing a lot more of these because now I'll have more time, we'll be able to just hang out and be in vibe spaces with each other chatting. I realized these are my people. And we have been, unfortunately, very indoctrinated to consider sameness only in the context of being harmed by the same people. And thus, there has been such effort successfully to create divide and conquer methodologies in real time, because you can say, well, all those people are trying to harm you. And now you guys are now just fighting an enemy together. When the truth of the matter is that it always ends up being something they're using as a tool. And for us, I feel like our connectivity here is not about us fighting the same enemy together. It's more about us living in this world together and wanting to simultaneously properly identify who enemies are, but also simultaneously properly identify our role in the commitment, the existence, the expansion of this human experience. So I appreciate you. I thank you. And we will continue to grow this community and do so with intention and purposefulness. So thank you to the AmandaLanders. PSA. Hey, come on now. What's up, y'all? Show your love. Drop a super in the chat. Throw your love. Or hit me on the Cash App. Your love, that's where it's at. Your love. I said we had a really good show, baby. I feel like this week was, baby, super poppin' with Karen Atia and David Boswell and Sunrise Movement. We talked about climate. We talked about Colombia. We talked about international affairs. We talked about David and his face. He's really handsome and in the right space. Now show me love. Show us love. Show them love. Show our love. Thank you for the super, Tanya Pierre. Thank you, everybody, for being right here to show your love. Ooh, yeah. I needed this. I can now go about my day. I needed this in the realest way. Y'all are the freaking best. Everyone, I'll see you on Monday. Unless you're on Patreon, and I'll see you before then. 30 seconds of stillness. I enjoyed laughing and learning with you. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell your friends. Also, listen to the podcast. It's available everywhere pods are casted. Listen ad-free by subscribing to Patreon Amanda Seals. Come on and join the Seals Squad. Views from AmandaLand. Live 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Wednesday, with content on Thursday and Friday at YouTube Amanda Seals TV. Smartphone!